Hi, welcome to Talk About here on Shaw TV. This is John Twigg. We are on, yes. I'm looking forward to the show. We've got Ken Blackburn with us here. And Ken, thank you again.
Always a pleasure, John.
Yeah.
Our yearly meeting, I guess.
How many times is this?
Good question. We've been doing
About
it
5.
for a lot of years, yeah.
Well, you've got new stuff happening.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them, what triggered it, was this art exhibit that was, actually it's just over at the Tide Mark. But it's a fantastic display of a new style of art.
Mm-hmm.
How did you come about it? What's the background?
Well, the background's a long story. I'll just be brief. I
we
lived
got
in
26 minutes.
Okay, one story in 27. Well, yeah. I lived in Japan in the early 1990s, and I had a great deal of interest in Japanese aesthetics, in Zen gardens, and when I got there, I discovered that I was really intrigued with their patterns, especially their kimono patterns. And just doing a little research into the history of kimono and the patterning, I discovered that there was a type of paper that had been an evolution of kimono patterns, and it was called chiogami. And it's a natural fiber paper, a kozo plant, long history in Japan of this paper. And on the street I lived, there was a little paper store, and I walked in one day, and there was this section of chiogami that was just an incredible riot of color and just intriguing patterns. And the Japanese use it as a kind of wrapping paper, as a kind of an ornamental paper. And the little old man who was in there, every story has a little old man in it, was chopping this paper for a customer, and it was falling on the floor, these fragments of it. And I looked down, and I had one of those epiphanies where I thought, oh my God, that's beautiful. Yeah. Just how they were falling and how they were interacting with each other, just these different colors and patterns. And so, I thought all I have to do is just take that and glue it, and it's a new kind of art. So I asked the guy for the scraps. He thought that was hilarious that I would want his scrap paper. But I got to know him, over the years, and he started collecting them for me. He always had a little bag for me every time I stopped in. And I would go home and I would start arranging them and collaging them.
And gluing them, I guess.
And gluing them together and making these compositions out of these fragments of these papers. And I found that process started to tell stories.
Do you get new paper now shipped in?
I do. Yeah, you can order. You can order from Japan through an outlet in Toronto. Yeah.
Well, you've been doing what we would call classical, normal painting for quite a while. But have you always been doing this?
As a backbeat, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a very good medium to travel with, because I've worked in a lot of countries, done a lot of traveling, and collage is handy to move around with, unlike paints or especially sculpture, which is impossible. But and it's something that can be done on a tabletop. And for a lot of years, I was working very small scale with it, just small paper compositions. And it's only in the last few years that I've gone to this larger scale, like the Event Horizon show at the Tide Mark.
Well, the Event Horizon show at the Tide Mark had a room full of different artworks, and there was a fan thing on one wall. But I think the hit of the piece was this little one down at the end, and it looked like it had a map upside down, and it had English well, not English, but sort of European letters, but they were upside down.
Yeah.
What's the background on that?
Well, that piece is called There Be Monsters, and it comes from the old maps where they'd have terra incognito, and they would use serpents or monsters as a kind of emblem on the map to show unknown territory, or kind of the dangers of going off the map, more or less. So really, the idea of a map being upside down is just simply orientation. I mean, I use them upside down when I'm traveling to point them in the direction, or to point them to the north or the south, wherever it is I'm heading, just because I can follow the geography more easily than having to reverse it. So an upside down map is just simply an orientation. So
it's not the world is going to hell in a handcart and it's all upside down?
No. If you listen to it backwards on slow speed, it doesn't say that. Yeah, John, who was it? Paul is dead. And no.
All right. Well, it's quite an interesting exhibit, and I congratulate you for that. And Ruth McMonigal is your agent, is she?
Well, she's been handling the art recently. Yes.
Yeah. So there's actually a list of items for sale. And I looked at it today. Ken has a website. How did you get KenBlackburn.com? There's there's a few prominent Ken Blackburns in the world.
There are, and one of them has been trying to get .com for a number of years now. Yeah. I just registered it way back when, and it was available. And there is a very famous. There's a famous Ken Blackburn in the States that makes paper airplanes, who has been trying to get .com for a while, and he's tried some takeover coups, but my website guy always gets it back for me. So.
How'd it go, Gilles?
Yeah. Well, this is pre-Gilles days.
Okay. Well, that's actually kind of an inadvertent segue to one of your two main jobs in town, and that's with the Campbell River Arts Council. Gilles is still the chair, is he not?
Yes, he is.
Yeah. How's that going? What's new there, if anything?
The Arts Council is rocking. I think the most exciting, two exciting developments this year has been the establishment of the Public Art Committee by the City of Campbell River.
That's quite recent.
Very recent. It was only struck, I think, at the end of September. For the Arts Council, that's been a long road. We have been pushing for that. Some of the early presentations go back to about 2008 and 2009.
So this is the new council at work.
Absolutely. I can't say enough good things about the support of council for not just public art, but for arts and culture in general. I think there's a recognition of the central and dynamic role that the arts and culture and heritage
and
plays.
Communities, by the way. I'm going to throw in a plug for the Campbellton Neighborhood Association.
Yeah.
They've been very supportive there too.
Good. Yeah. I think it's kind of percolated to the surface that this is a sector that is a tremendous resource for community development, whether it's social or economic. Cultural development, that the arts, culture, heritage are a really key player in that. So they've been supportive. Yeah. And
there's a public feedback process, is there?
There is. Yeah. If people go to Campbell River Public Art.ca, there is a survey on there that's asking for input into how we would prioritize what areas of the city that we should be looking at in terms of placemaking and bringing a dynamism through art into these areas. So there is a survey there, and then there's also a directory for artists that are interested in being part of.
That's an important thing too.
Yeah, so we have a roster of artists available.
Actually, that's a bit of an opportunity. Central Island Artisan Studio Tour. This is out of the What's On Digest magazine. There we go. There's no detail on it, but I've got a thing here I'd like to talk about: is art as industry and art as job creation. Mm-hmm. What do you got? 50 dots here between Campbell River and Courtenay, where there's different artists, and you can pop in and see their stuff.
I don't doubt it.
Artisan is not the same as art, but pretty close.
Sure, yeah, they're all kissing cousins, as they say. So, there's a lot of artists in this area, some of which have a very high profile or are very engaged, and others which work quietly away and work in their studios and maybe show in the lower mainland markets or in other markets out east and stuff. But no, and of course when we talk about the arts, you're talking about craft as well. But there's also a tremendous amount of musicians around, and writers.
Actually, the Arts Council includes music, doesn't it? I think.
Yeah, and writing. Theater people, some of the work that Heather Gordon Murphy does in town is amazing. Working with John Bailey, and there's a lot going on.
How old is the Arts Council, roughly?
It was formed in 1970.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's the segue to where I'm going with this line. I've noticed and heard from you recently that other arts councils around the province are, I guess, paying you to come in and coach them. And tell us about that.
Well, we've been doing that for quite a while. Well, I've been doing that for quite a while. An arts council flies under the radar a lot in a community. It's not highly visible. And we run programs, in the hospital. We run programs with head injury, with family services, working with youth at risk. We're really engaged with social service agencies, which isn't sexy or glamorous. It's work that is really on the front lines of a lot of challenges in town. But in terms of the role of the arts within a community, it's a very valuable resource. And our work here has been noticed around the province. And a lot of arts councils go through transitions as to try to redefine themselves or find new directions for themselves. And one of the ways to do that is to look through either working with social service agencies or working with economic development or just addressing the kinds of goals and objectives a community has and where they want to get to and what can we do to assist with that. So we've been very successful here in Campbell River at that, and so I go give talks.
How many?
And well, good question. I'm going to say, probably over 20 in the last 5 or 6 years.
How far afield?
Dawson Creek.
That's about as far as you get.
Dawson Creek, through the lower mainland, Prince Rupert, Williams Lake.
Okay.
So
well, we may come back to the Arts Council if time permits, but I want to get to the museum at Campbell River. A lot of people call it the Campbell River Museum, and there's a difference. How is life and what's going on in the museum at Campbell River?
I was hoping you'd ask about the museum because the museum is also rocking. The incredible year at the museum.
Good.
And the staff and volunteers and board of that museum are really amazing. Another community resource and a real gem. Attendance is up all around. Our programming is rocketing. Our school programs are maxed out. I mean, it's just the access to that building and our services.
Well, good
great.
example. Last night when the Campbellton Neighborhood Association did the premiere of its film, which we hope to show here one day maybe, some people came to that and they lived near the museum and they said, well, there were so many cars on the museum last night. What was going on? Well, it was a Chamber of Commerce mixer.
The Jingle Mingle, I think they had 100 people there.
So there's the leading business organization in town going to the museum. Now, was that partly because the museum is the museum or it's just a good venue?
Well, in this case, I think it's because it's a great Christmas venue. Because we have our Festival of Trees display in there now. And it is just a fantastic space to have a Christmas event or a party or a meeting. It's beautiful in there right now.
I think the prices you charge are pretty good too.
Excellent. I don't think you get a better deal in town for sure. And then we also have a number of Christmas displays through the galleries, and we have this weekend's the choir is singing in the museum galleries.
I've got to interject. As we're watching this, it was probably last weekend. Because we record on Wednesdays and we start airing on Mondays.
Okay, so it'll be last weekend. But then it'll be next weekend. There's our second Christmas event.
So there's lots of activities at the museum. Is it posted on the museum website?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, everything's there.
What's the website?
crmuseum.ca.
I asked the tough questions here.
It usually gets me flat-footed.
No, you're 3 for 3.
Yeah, that's not bad. The museum at Christmas time it's a great location because of how it's decorated. You have to see the Festival of Trees. It's on all of December too. So
I am a journalist. I got to ask tough questions.
Okay.
Sometimes the parking is lousy at the museum.
Oh, well,
That's
we
not
got
a
the
question.
overflow lot now.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Is there anything can be done, or is it max as it is?
You're asking the wrong person. I mean, you'd have to talk with the city and talk with Sandra and look at the building. And I mean, it is a city structure. And, I mean, and there is the big forested lot behind it. You know, that people want to take down trees for
live
parking
in there,
lots.
I understand.
Pardon?
There's deer that live in there.
Is there? Yeah.
I've heard.
Yeah, a nice little glade,
Yeah.
I guess. But,
Yeah.
but, you know, do you want to tear down trees to make more parking? I don't know.
Well, the next guest is going to talk about climate, but that's a week or
Right.
two away.
Yeah.
So there's actually a third thing you do now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, fourth, counting the art that he does in his spare time. Teaching at Emily Carr.
Yeah.
What's that about?
That has been a great experience for me. It was something I always wanted to do, in a sense. Now, you know, careers take funny paths that have a mind of their own sometimes. University teaching has been something I've tried to get into many times without much success, but this year they offered me an opportunity to work with their graduating class, their, what they call it, VAST, their visual arts students in their fourth year.
Courtney?
It's in, the Courtney campus, right. Emily Carr is actually winding down that program, which is a shame. It's a great loss. But so I've been able to work with their, well, it's a blend of third and fourth year students as they prepare for their final shows. So it's gone really well.
Yeah. I looked at your website earlier today, and you've got is it a BFA and an MFA?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a master's.
Yeah. So you're qualified to teach too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My background's in sculpture mostly. Well, even though I'm doing more 2D work now, it's I have a master's degree in sculpture, mixed media, installation, performance, sound, video.
Yeah. Well, actually, is there stuff you'd like to talk about?
Well, we've addressed the museum, great things. The Arts Council, we didn't really talk about the hospital initiative, which is another huge area. You know, the role of arts in healthcare is something that we've been doing, working with different agencies around town. As I say, whether it's stroke recovery or head injury, we wanted to work directly with the hospital. And by that wonderful hospital auxiliary that's there, who are, I call them a force of the universe, that group understood, what the aims were. We wanted to work within the hospital to create a sense of community in there, so that people, whether you're a patient recovering, whether you're staff working in the hospital, or whether you're visitors, family, visiting patients, that the experience of being in that building and within the hospital is, you feel like you're part of a larger community. That was the goal.
There was the color coding thing you did, I think, just a couple of years ago.
Well, we
pitched
it.
With it.
Yeah. And of course, with the current hospital has a limited shelf life now with the new hospital coming. This is a great opportunity to experiment and to see what would work and not work. And so we've started down this path of integrating art into the hospital.
Into the new one?
Into the current one. The discussions about the new one are ongoing. What the role of the art in the new hospital is something that's being decided through Island Health, who are trying to develop a policy as to what the role is of arts in a hospital, and they want to try to create something that's island-wide. And I have met with Tom Sparrow last week to give me an update on it. Some gears turn slowly, and they're working on it. But in the meantime, we're getting on with working with the community to bring art into this current hospital. And again, thanks to the Hospital Auxiliary for providing funding for it, and the Community Foundation as well.
I've got a bone to pick with the Vancouver Island Health Authority, or is it the Hospital Authority, in the sense that, trying to impose an island-wide policy when so clearly there are different community needs, like whether it's First Nations in small communities, or, Campbell River with its arts richness. Courtney has Comox, slightly different things. And Qualicum, Parksville, they're more oldsters. But we got to fit a square peg into one round hole all over the island. And it's.
I completely agree with you. I had, as I say, Tom's ear last week, and I say the same thing.
Tom's a good guy, but he's doing a good job probably, but he's not in charge. You talk to him, he's got to go to a committee. And the reason you can tell there's a bit of an annoyance in my voice. We had the chief health officer, I guess the local for the North Island, but I asked her about, is there going to be a childcare facility in the new hospital? She said it's the most important thing we can do for poverty in Campbell River is to have more childcare. Well, sorry, it's too late to put one in the new under construction still hospital. And, it's not Tom's fault, but it is, come on, folks.
Well, all I can say, I agree. I mean,
Yeah.
but in terms of the arts, just for people to know, we are pushing
You're doing your good.
for local representation in our hospital.
Yeah.
I know Island Health, etc., but no, this is Campbell River. This is our hospital.
And
so.
you just think, well, you would know from having been here, how hard the people of Campbell River had to fight to just keep the hospital. They were going to try and close the one here and make us all go to Comox for healthcare. I mean, it was ludicrous.
Yeah.
We had an NDP riding. That was part of it. But anyway.
Anyways,
yes.
But the story's unwritten on that. We shall see. But we are paying attention, and we are definitely, again, on the front lines of being a voice for local representation and a strong role of the arts. The arts, including things like music therapy in our new hospital, which we're doing now in the old. So that's, when you ask me what else would I want to say, I would be remiss not to talk about that because it's a big...
Anything else? The Canucks? Or?
Yeah. The Red Blacks lost the Grey Cup painfully. It was so sad to see that. And my Browns are a disaster again this year in the NFL, so we won't go there.
Okay. How about a little bit on job creation and the arts? We kind of talked about it a bit.
Yeah.
Is there more that could be done?
Well, I think it's emerging all the time because the arts are tremendously entrepreneurial. There's kind of an emerging field called social enterprise now, or social entrepreneurship, of which artists are perhaps the leading sector in creating new structures or new relationships between how we conduct a private business, but how we also blend it with a not-for-profit, with a social need or addressing a social challenge. And I would say arts and culture probably is up there as number one, in terms of pursuing these kinds of new.
How's the
initiatives.
provincial funding for arts these days?
Probably at a good level,
Okay.
I suppose it depends who you talk to.
It can always be more, but compared to what it was?
It seems to be on the upswing.
Yeah.
Again, I think it's in the air generally that investment in the arts isn't a bad idea. And it used to be an easy cut, because it was seen as a frill or a fringe. I think that thinking has gone, especially when you look at how resources are tanking and our traditional economies are underperforming.
I just had a late brainwave about new media and audio video. I mean, we've had television for a few decades now, but do you see a change there? Are there more? I don't know. Are they called? They're not graphic artists, but moving artists.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, the creative industries is really kind of focused on, especially the gaming industry, which is huge, which incorporates video, sound, and you got people in town here that are doing great jobs around that.
In the Arts Council,
is
there
it
many
coming this way?
makers,
We have a few filmmakers. James Hedricks has been working on a documentary about what we would look at as concepts of home, especially in senior care, and alternative models of senior care, which is something we really have to start talking about too, especially with the baby boom bulge coming to retirement, and how else can we do senior care? I recently have seen some footage on putting daycares and
senior care together.
And we have kids, little kids with seniors. What a great idea, I mean, just to have that kind of cross-generational thinking. So that's
art is a lot of thinking outside the box, isn't it? Something new. Yeah. And so if you have artistic thinking to hard economic issues, maybe we'll get some better solutions.
guaranteed to get better solutions. Yeah, it's not a theory. It's it's a working reality. So.
Okay. Well, the last line here is art as a social good. Well, we've kind of pounded that away for 24 and a half minutes.
Yeah.
But any final thoughts?
Well, just again to give some kudos to Campbell River, the social service sector in this community is absolutely A1.
Yeah.
The people who are managing, across the board.
The cold shelter, the all-night thing. I mean, the community did that.
Yeah.
And then the big governments came along and supported it.
Yeah.
And the local government, kudos to them.
Yeah. This is an incredible place.
Yeah.
It really is. And the arts, people are catching on. I think that the arts are a wonderful partner and a great resource to help you do what it is that you do, whether you're social or economic, cultural. So, I think we're collectively the idea of all paddling in the same direction. We really are.
Yeah.
Now, there's always going to be some differences, but City Council is on board. The people, the city bureaucracy is excellent.
Yeah.
So across the
And
board.
we'll finish this off saying, Ken, you're doing a great job too.
Okay, you too, John.
Oh, I try. So thanks very much for the work you do, and thanks very much for coming on Talk About. So there's Talk About, folks, and it's on Shaw TV North Island. Thank you, Chaz. Thank you, Matt and Laura, for doing the cameras, and thank you for watching.